Many people think that communication means talking. Although this is a key element, there are actually numerous ways in which we communicate, that is, get our message across. Speaking, shouting and whispering, tone of voice, listening and hearing, facial expressions, body language, other forms of non-verbal communication, for example, turning away, how we dress and the image that we portray. Every moment of every day, we're sending messages to other people about who we are and how we are feeling. Often, those messages can be misinterpreted by others, and people may jump to wrong conclusions. That's why it's important to think carefully about communication. Verbal communication. Verbal communication is about what we say, the words that we choose, and how we say it, tone, volume, etc. Words are powerful and should be used very carefully, as it's impossible to unsay something. Sometimes we're thoughtless about our words, and this can cause us trouble, or others hurt. Think for a moment about this old Haitian proverb. Don't insult the alligator until you've crossed the river. What could it mean? In what way is it similar to the saying, don't bite the hand that feeds you? A smart person knows what to say. A wise person knows whether to say it or not.
Persuasion. It is so much better to try to persuade than to argue. Your chances of winning are so much better if you can present a calm and well thought out communication rather than one that is angry or emotional.
Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that helps the flowers to grow, not thunder.
Think about the 8 C's. Number 1. Command attention.
Choose a good time to have the conversation.
Number 2. Clarify the message.
Be clear about your points.
Number 3. Communicate a benefit.
Explain how this could be a good thing.
Number 4. Consistency counts.
Keep to one request rather than making many different demands at once.
Number 5. Cater to the head and to the heart.
Say why it is both logical and positive.
Number 6. Create trust.
Show that you keep your word, your end of the bargain.
Number 7. Call for action.
Explain what you would really like to happen next.
And number 8. Choose your words carefully.
Avoid being emotive or argumentative.
Be ready for disappointment. This doesn't mean that your communication has failed. You might have planted a seed that just needs a little time to develop.
Tone. How often have you heard a teacher or a parent say, "Don't speak to me in that tone of voice"? The problem is often not what we say, but how we say it. People may hear your words, but they feel your attitude. John Maxwell.
Listen to the sad case of Derek Bentley. Let him have it. In 1952, a young man called Derek Bentley, who was said to have a mental age of only 11 years old and could not read or write, was persuaded to commit a burglary with his friend Christopher Craig. Derek carried a knife with him, given to him by his friend, but Christopher Craig carried a gun. The pair broke into a warehouse, but a local woman saw them and phoned the police, who cornered them on the rooftop. Craig decided to try to shoot his way out of trouble and fired the gun, wounding a police officer in the shoulder. Derek shouted, "Let him have it, Chris." Craig continued shooting and killed a policeman. Both were caught and tried for murder. They were both found guilty. Derek was sentenced to death because he was over 18, whilst Craig was imprisoned as he was 16, even though he was the one to shoot the gun. The case centred on the interpretation about what Derek had meant by "let him have it." Did he mean let him have the bullets, i.e. shoot him? Or did he mean let him have the gun, that is, let's give ourselves up? Derek was hanged in January 1962. However, his case was reviewed on many occasions after this, and finally, in 1997, the appeal court ruled that the conviction and the sentence were unsafe. Sadly, this was far too late for Derek Bentley.
Listening and hearing. We often use these two terms as if they mean the same thing, but actually there is a big difference. Hearing is the physical process of receiving sound. Listening requires you to focus and understand the sounds. So you might hear a sound in the distance, but you would need to listen to it and interpret that sound for it to make sense.
Listen to this story, Thomas and the Flood. One day, a very religious man called Thomas was caught in rising floodwaters. His house was submerged under 15 feet of swirling muddy water, and he couldn't swim. But Tom had great faith, so he climbed onto the roof of his house, and he trusted God to rescue him. A few minutes later, a neighbour came by in a canoe and said, "The waters will soon be above your house. Hop in and we'll paddle to safety." "No thanks," replied Tom. "I've prayed to God and I'm sure he will save me." A short time later, the police came by in a boat. "The waters will soon be above your house. Hop in and we'll take you to safety," they shouted. "No thanks," replied the religious man. "I've prayed to God and I'm sure he will save me." Another hour went by and the flood was worsening. Tom heard a rescue services helicopter hovering overhead. A voice boomed through the loudspeaker. "The waters will soon be above your house. Climb the ladder and we'll fly you to safety." Tom heard, but he did not listen. "No thanks," shouted Tom. "I've prayed to God and I'm sure he will save me." The storm raged on. The flood waters continued to rise until finally they reached above the roof and Tom was drowned. When Tom arrived at heaven, he demanded an audience with God. Ushered into God's throne room, he said, "Lord, why am I here in heaven? I prayed for you to help me. I trusted you to save me from the flood." "Yes, you did, my child, and rightly so," replied God. "Who do you think sent you a canoe, a boat, and a helicopter?"
Body language. Words and tone are not the only way in which we communicate. Perhaps just as important is body language. The expression on our faces, the way we hold or act ourselves. Telltale signs that give away how we're really feeling. Our appearance. Often, the strongest communication is not what we say, but how we act and look. Our facial expressions often tell more about how we are feeling than our words. Look at the pictures that follow of different people with a variety of expressions. Without speaking aloud, see if you can decide what attitude the person is displaying. Character 1 is displaying a happy expression. Number 2 is angry. Number 3, thoughtful. Number 4, frustrated. Number 5, excited. How many did you get right? A bad attitude is like a flat tire. You can't get anywhere until you change it. What does your body language communicate to others, and how does it make them feel? Communication factors. What makes up what we hear? Research suggests that 38% of what we hear is tone of voice. 55% is body language. But look, only 7% are the words themselves. I've learned that people will forget what you said, and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou.